So it turns out Michael Penix is not going to play in preseason, any preseason football this year. Welcome back to Joe Patrick on Football. My name is Joe Patrick, Falcons reporter for 92.9 The Game. Before we get into everything that happened today, both on the field and then the newsy stuff that happened off the field, I want to ask everybody to please subscribe to 92.9 The Game's YouTube channel and like this video. If you like Falcons football, you're going to want to like the video because then the algorithm's going to keep feeding you Falcons football stuff. So let's get into everything that happened, and let's start with some of the off-the-field stuff because that is really the most newsworthy point of today, where we were told by Kevin Stefanski that Michael Penix, will not play in this Friday's preseason game against the Miami Dolphins. It felt like it was going to be a perfect opportunity to potentially get him in and get him some reps before potentially being the Week 1 starter against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where the team will go on the road. But instead, Kevin Stefanski says it's basically too early for Michael Penix. They still consider him as being part of an acclimation period, even though he has now returned to the 11-on-11 stuff. And so they're not going to put him out there. I think they just see it as too big of a risk for where he is right now to be thrown out there in a preseason game. Does that mean it's also too risky to throw him into a regular season game in Week 1? Frankly, that's how it would seem to me. And I asked Kevin Stefanski if this move basically indicates that Tua Tagovailoa is the Week 1 starter, and he wouldn't go that far. He just wanted to say, no, we're still just taking it day by day. I like to take it day by day. And I just wonder how long they can keep taking it day by day before they officially announce who the starting quarterback is going to be for that obviously really important game. And it's interesting, especially because Ian Cunningham is expected to address the media next week. I believe that will be on Wednesday. We'll get some further clarification on that shortly. But he will address the media, just kind of talking about all the roster moves and everything the team has done and what has occurred to this point. And I would be surprised if they haven't named a starting quarterback by then. I feel like it would be a bit of an awkward press conference for Ian Cunningham to have to go through if they're still up in the air, if it's just, if they're still taking it day by day and haven't determined who the quarterback is going to be for a game that they're going to play in 10 days' time at that point. So it will be very interesting. And it's also been interesting to me to see some of the tea leaves and try to read some of the tea leaves that are happening with some of the national reporters who are talking about this situation. And the one that really kind of made my ears perk up was Ian Rappaport gave a report on NFL Network. I believe this was on Monday, where he basically said that Michael Penix has now put himself in position to win the starting quarterback job for this Falcons football team. And that is, to me, somebody like Ian Rappaport doesn't say that unless they know something. Sorry, my $20 Amazon's Basics tripod is falling there. I don't think Ian Rappaport goes out on a limb to say something like that unless he has some background from somebody that that's the case. And then after Stefanski told us in the press conference room today that Penix wouldn't play, Rappaport had another tweet this time putting out there, quote, Penix has put himself in position to win the job with his play. That, to me, doesn't sound hypothetical. It doesn't sound to me like it's potential, like he could potentially win the job. He says Penix has put himself in position to win the job with his play. So that tells me that Michael Penix is still in play to be this team's Week 1 starter. And I've said this on the radio with Steak Shapiro yesterday, and I've said it to some other people, but my mind keeps going back to that Matt Ryan, actually when Matt Ryan was inducted into the Hall of the Falcons Ring of Honor, Raheem Morris brought him into the building, had him give a presentation to the team, or then they, kind of surprisingly revealed at the end that Matt Ryan was going to get this honor. And the speech that Matt Ryan was giving was about earning it as a Falcon. As an Atlanta Falcon, you have to come in and earn it. And if you earn it, then the fans are going to reward you for it. And I come back to this quarterback situation, to that moment of one of these quarterbacks has to earn it. And it sounds to me like, based off what Rappaport has been saying, that it's been Penix who's been, earning it, so to speak, more than Tua Tagovailoa. And, based on what we've seen from Tua Tagovailoa, both in the joint practices and then in the obviously limited sample size he had in the first preseason game against the Denver Broncos, you wouldn't say that that's earning it. And maybe they're just waiting for him to have a better performance, public performance, I would say, because he has had some good days out here, for sure, but with nobody really to see it. I do wonder maybe they just want to see him play better against Miami, and then they can consider that as having earned it. But, to me, it feels like, Penix is the quarterback that this coaching staff sees as having more potential with this team. But, that's just my speculation. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN also had a tweet this afternoon where he kind of intimated that Penix's return and the fact that this is still like way earlier return than anybody really anticipated or that they really would have expected to have happened. And then that early return is now giving Stefanski the opportunity to name him starter, considering he'll have basically a couple weeks to practice. He had this week, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Team will obviously go off and play in Miami on Friday, but then they'll come back next week and they'll be practicing here all next week and then all week the following week leading into the Sunday game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, we won't be here. There will be no media access next week, which again is maybe helpful for the coaching staff if they want to keep some of this stuff under wraps, incognito. There won't be any media here to see how the practices go next week, and maybe that's when there is potentially some sort of real competition that's happening, or they are starting to just get ready with whichever starting quarterback they choose. And frankly, none of us even know exactly when that starting quarterback is going to be publicly announced. I doubt it will happen like post-game of the Friday game. I only say that is because that's the only other time we are scheduled to speak with Kevin Stefanski before we get into that week 1 game against Pittsburgh. I'm surprised it's taken this long because I've always been of the opinion that coaches want to know who that quarterback is so that they can really start to install the offense and really kind of get in a rhythm, get the guys the reps they need in the preseason in order to get them ready. Usually, obviously an NFL coach would want the starting quarterback working with his ones the entire training camp, but even if you have a competition, you want to kind of wrap that up at a certain point so that then you can have that guy locked in and they can be getting all the work they need done. Now that they haven't been able to do that, because in this case, Tua has been taking all the first team reps because Penix hasn't been able to be involved there. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly Penix can kind of reintegrate himself with the ones. And he's obviously done a little bit of that this week, but there'll be a lot more, especially in a new offense that he's learning under Tommy Rees, that he'll have to make sure that he proves to the coaching staff he can execute. But very interesting situation going on here at obviously the most important position in all of sports because it's the most popular sport in the world, or I should say in this country at least, and obviously the most important component for any winning team. So very, very interesting there. Now, the other really, really important or fascinating, impactful, you could use any words to describe it, was Za'Darius Smith talking to the media today for the first time since joining the Falcons. Obviously a pretty notable pass rusher who the team signed late in training camp. And Za'Darius admitted that it was after everything that happened to Jalen Walker, the team came and said that they needed a pass rusher. And I don't even want to try to break down everything that he said because it's worth just going to the Falcons YouTube channel and watching that press conference. Give a ton of credit to Za'Darius for being as open as he was with us about what's happened in his personal life since he retired, which I didn't even realize he retired from the Browns in the middle of last season for what were deemed personal matters, and that's exactly what he gets into today with us. He lost both his mom. The reason why he said he retired is that his mother's doctor told him that she didn't have long to live, and so he wanted to spend as much time with her as possible before she passed. And she ultimately passed, and then his dad passed, and his grandmother also passed. And so losing 3, obviously both parents, and 3 just incredibly vital family members to him and his life in one off season, basically an off season and half an NFL season, a very short period of time. Clearly a lot for him to go through. He was clearly admitted that he was in a very low place in his life, just dealing with all this grief, and just ultimately decided that he did want to come back because, as to quote him, the football field is his happy place, and it's where he feels like he can be most normal, and he really seems to appreciate it here. Obviously, he has a relationship with Kevin Stefanski going back to his time in Cleveland. He said that was one of the reasons why he wanted to come to Atlanta, but he's also originally from Alabama. He said his mom always wanted him to play for the Falcons as being the hometown team for them. And so just a lot of things coming full circle for Za'Darius Smith in that respect. And again, give him a ton of credit for being as open and honest with us. He was getting emotional. I think we were all getting emotional. Were you getting emotional, Dave, during Za'Darius Smith's press conference?
Yes.
He was. And I didn't even think you would say that because you're a pretty stoic guy. But it was it was a lot. And so I definitely recommend everybody just go check it out for yourself, because it's definitely worth watching. As for what happened on the practice field today, again, they were really, Kevin Stefanski said it wasn't like today's practice was mimicking what they would do on a Friday practice, but it was, I think, kind of at the tempo, and they were going through a lot of different situational stuff today. Again, just trying to get ready for a preseason game, so they have to kind of, have all their special teams on their P's and Q's. They were even going through some onside kicks. They were doing all kinds of situational red zones, trying to, pick up 3rd and 4th downs, those kinds of things on all different areas of the field. So it was a high tempo practice, even though it wasn't a very long one. And it became evident today while we were watching practice, in my opinion at least, that Tua was going to have a big part to play in this game. It looked like he was repping with the ones for the most part. Penix was getting in sometimes with the ones, but it was mostly with more of the twos, more of the backups. And so, and I thought Tua, played really well today on the field. He had a long touchdown pass to Jahan Dotson, I believe it was. But also a lot of the work they were doing was just short yardage, red zone type of stuff, which is where I think Tua's best work in this entire training camp has been. We kind of talked about that before. I don't know if I've joked about it on the podcast, but kind of joked that, like, you could really have the perfect quarterback situation here in Atlanta. You would just play Penix between the 20s or up to the 20, and then put Tua in for the red zone and have Tua use his kind of accuracy and the ability to layer those balls in those red zone moments. But certainly an eventful day for the Atlanta Falcons, just because of everything that's happening with the quarterback situation. And again, I followed up with Kevin Stefanski after he said that Penix wasn't going to play, saying, does this mean that Tua is going to be your week 1 starter if Penix, if he's still, acclimatizing to the situation? You only have 2 weeks left, and he wouldn't go that far. So very, very interesting from him and everybody here. Thank you guys so much for watching another episode of Joe Patrick on Football. Now, while we won't be here necessarily after having seen entire practices, the show will obviously continue. Sometimes we'll do it from home. We'll try to do it from here as much as we can, because I just like doing it from here, but we'll see. Regardless, if you've been watching, paying attention throughout this training camp, thank you guys so much. I mean, I keep on hearing from people about the show, which is kind of crazy, all the love that you guys have shown for it. And yeah, I don't know, it's just great. It's awesome to hear, and can't wait to just keep it going throughout the season. Hopefully we have some good stuff to talk about. So until then, we'll talk to you guys next time.